and we are celebrating this amazing step that Phillippa has put together about the life achievements of Taller Cranston. We're going to do this as a conversation. It's going to be something that we're going to be posting on Facebook, Instagram. So please make your comments, and we're hoping for the feedback. Phillippa, tell us about the journey. How has been this journey? What is happening?
I can tell you a little bit. When Taller died very suddenly in 2015, a massive heart attack and dropped dead, nobody expected it at all. I knew instantly that it would fall to me to preserve and nourish and grow his legacy, and it was pretty obvious that a book would be a clear first thing to do. But I didn't know when I began, and I am a writer, so the writing part wasn't intimidating to me, but I had no clue that I would ever have a publisher, and furthermore, more importantly, I knew that I couldn't write about the politics in figure skating judging, which were very big for Taller, nor could I write about LGBT issues because it's a world I don't really know, nor could I write about Taller's position in contemporary art among the firmament of contemporary artists in Canada and worldwide. So what I did was invite people who did have those credentials to write, and also in the back of my devious little mind was the idea that, well, if they're in the book, then they'll want a copy of the book, and that's how the book will get out. So along the way, this concept developed into contributions from more than 150 people who represent every aspect of Taller's lives: the skating, the painting, the Mexico, the fans, the art collectors, the staff. And together, I think their perspectives and experience and feelings, and most importantly, the impact that Taller had on their lives, is the fabric, the heart, beating heart of this book. So I think what's remarkable about the book is the collectivity of the perspectives that have come together to create a portrait of, I think, a very important Canadian, a significant artist, a major talent, and of course I'm very proud of my brother, but I'm extremely proud of this book.
So we are very proud of having you here. We are very honored that the Temiskaming Art Gallery is part of this journey, and we want to play our game and our part. Many people probably don't know what happened. What is it? Why Taller Cranston is so important to Northern Ontario? Why Taller Cranston here in Temiskaming and in Kirkland Lake?
Well, that's such a good question. I think Kirkland Lake, where we live, my father was in the mining business. We lived there when I was in grade 1, 2, 3, and Taller was in grade kindergarten 1, 2. And that's where he began to skate. That's where I think we learned how amazing people of the North are. The values in the North are different, I think, from other places. And the honesty and decency of being part of a community has stayed with Taller and stayed with me. So it's an honor for me to bring Taller to Northern Ontario. As you know, there was a significant exhibition of his work, both at the Temiskaming Art Gallery and at the Northern Museum of
Northern
History in Kirkland Lake in 2019. And so the community has kind of adopted Taller as a favorite son, and it just seemed appropriate to actually bring the book here. Of course, people can call Amazon and get it in 2 days, but it's much nicer and more personal to bring it here and make it available.
We do have a wall of fame in Kirkland Lake at the museum, and Taller Cranston is one of the people that are very important to us. We take basically Taller Cranston is a child growing up in Kirkland Lake. So, and most people from Kirkland Lake, well, we have people that are from Kirkland Lake,
yeah.
but a lot of people come to Kirkland Lake.
Yeah.
Because of the mine or because of other reasons. So Kirkland Lake is used to have people that are coming from elsewhere and living in Kirkland Lake.
Where is this wall?
It is inside the museum.
Oh, okay.
There are some very important people there. David Phillips, who was a great musician. In this moment, a lot of people are escaped from my mind, but definitely Taller Cranston.
That's great.
A lot of hockey players, a lot of
David Keon, I think.
Yeah.
David Keon.
So yeah, I don't know some names, but I know that most of the tradition has been always through hockey players and
Yeah.
back to figure skating. I wanted to go back to the legacy
Yes.
because the legacy is very important. Most people, for example, when we talk about artists, we know that some of them they barely make it to be known during their lifetime. That was not Toller Cranston's case. Toller Cranston was very well known as a figure skater, as a person that made it even into Hollywood, as a social star. So he was not unknown. Well, I don't know if I'm making a question. It's basically his legacy is mostly he's continuing everything that he did and he was recognized during
I
his
think
life.
he was truly remarkable in a million ways. He was a very skilled self-promoter and a performer on and off the ice, in and out of his studio. And he was articulate, and he was thoughtful, and he was funny. He was an incredibly funny raconteur and storyteller. But I think the reason that he's resonated, and really it goes back to what you said about Kirkland Lake, is that something about a small town boy growing up in a small town was always with him. Even when he was his most outrageous trailing fur coats through New York City, there was something very small town Canadian about him that made him accessible to people. And even now, 10 years after he passed away and 50 years after his peak as a figure skater in Canada, he still resonates with people. The audience is there. People remember not only watching him skate, but how they felt when they watched him skate. And my job is to increase the awareness of Toller's prominence as an artist. But he would have said he was an artist first and second, and end of the story. An artist on the ice, an artist in his studio, an artist in his life, an artist in how he lived. His whole mission was to be creative every day, and that's what he did, and that's what he encouraged other people to do as well.
Speaking about this idea of the legacy, for example, I was a figure skater. That's probably how one of the connections that I grew up being a skater and seeing. Toller Cranston was a little before my generation of the skaters, but the people that follow him, they have changed. He had already changed the idea of the figure skating in the world, because before him, figure skating was like a only sport, very rigid with certain kind of rules, and he changed into make it into an art. That art became part of the figure skating.
That's right.
So probably some skaters nowadays they take it for granted, but he was the first one who made all this big change.
He certainly did make the big change. And these days the pressure is on skaters for the jumping triples and quadruples and combinations and so on. And a lot of the artistry that Toller brought to skating has been kind of suppressed. And I think like a pendulum it will move back, because there are skaters worldwide that are incredibly talented.
Jason Brown
is unique and wonderful, but a lot of them are talented, but you don't get goosebumps and a lump in your throat when you watch them skate. You just think, oh good, he landed it, or oh too bad he fell, and it's different. But with Toller and with Jason Brown and with the others that are committed to a path of creativity and expression in skating, it's just something that stays with an audience. They feel it, and it stays with them for decades.
So I want to talk now about his artwork, because of course we are in the setting of a gallery, and that's probably what people are more curious. He made it as a world-renowned painter. Not a sculptor, but a creator.
Yeah.
Everything around him, everything about him was a creation.
That's right. Well, he was a painter. People ask, was he a painter or a skater first? He painted and drew from the time he was 6 or 7, and he considered himself, he knew in his soul that he was an artist. But because he became very well known as a figure skater in his teens, 16, 18, 20, he would often, in the early days, set up an exhibition of his paintings or his work, and people, because he was famous as a skater, they would buy his paintings, and that prices increased and people held on to them and people came and bought another and another and another. And he really supported himself through his paintings from a very young age, which is very difficult for any artist, especially for Canadian artists, and especially for Canadian artists who come from figure skating or any other kind of sport. It's very, very difficult, but Toller did. He was also a very skilled salesman, and he would sometimes arrive at people's homes with a truck and two guys and a huge painting, and march in and bang it up on their wall and say, there, now you owe me $15,000. If you don't like it, I'll take it back. But of course they always would. And so he was pretty assertive that way. But you know, he painted more than 20,000 pieces in his lifetime.
Wow.
That's a figure that I've agreed on with the gallerist is realistic. He himself was quoted as saying 60,000, 70,000, and that may be sort of true. But given that he was so prolific and he only lived till he was 65, the fact that the paintings are flooding into the market and the value going south is a tribute to the uniqueness and the quality of his work and the respect in which he's held. There's an exhibition going on right now in Adelaide, Australia with Art Evolution, and he's a completely unknown artist in Australia, but his pieces are doing very well.
Oh, incredible. That's wonderful. One of the things that when we did the retrospective
Yes.
of his work here, it was the videos about his house in San Miguel de Allende.
Yes.
Because it was basically, he created these temples. His house was a temple full of art everywhere.
That's right.
So what happened with this? What happened with that space?
Well, he did create this magnificent estate property in San Miguel, but if you looked beneath the 18,000 things, couches and carpets and chairs and ceramic and platters and statuary and candelabra and 40-some chandeliers that he designed, if you look past that, the place was actually a dump. So the houses, the buildings on the property were not salvageable at all. They were utterly decrepit. But I did organize an estate sale that went on for more than 6 weeks, 7 days a week, from dawn till dusk, and 18,000 items from his property were dispersed. And somebody said one day that, oh, this is like organ transplants, and it was. So the property has been sold and severed, and several pieces have gone to different people, but 18,000 items, excluding his paintings, 18,000 items have gone to other homes and hotels and restaurants across San Miguel and throughout Canada. People have taken a piece of the legend home with them. So the property no longer exists, but Toller's presence in San Miguel is still very strong.
Wonderful. So here is the book, but this one is your creation,
Yes.
Phillippa, tell us what is next. What is going to happen?
Well, I can tell you what's next. I have a publisher for the next book, which will come out in the fall, that will be just Toller's artworks.
Okay.
The paintings,
Like a coffee
the
table.
drawings, yeah. And it will be fabulous. So,
But there is more than that.
Ella quiere recordar a su familia, pero a la vez promocionar el deporte, el arte y la pintura.
Jeez. You see, my mom is understanding me in Spanish. Yeah. So what is going to happen? What is next? The book launch.
So
We're going to do more
there's-
retrospectives. We will hear more about Toller Cranston.
absolutely. So the next big project is the book, but I'm also working with a group in Lake Placid, New York, where Toller would go to skate in the summertime, and he worked there as an 18-year-old. He worked at the Mirror Lake Inn, which was one of the old Grand Hotels in Lake Placid. They have a school only for school figures, if you recall the technical figure skating that used to be part of figure eights and so on. They started more than 10 years ago to not bring back the school figures, but to bring back the discipline and the extraordinary creativity of creating patterns on ice with edges and blades and turns, which doesn't require the same technique as jumping and spinning, but does require an enormous amount of thinking. They are talking now about doing a 5-day Toller Cranston Festival. They see him as a kind of avatar because he was all about creativity and expression. And this way, the pressure of landing jumps and so on has been removed, but the challenge of creating something beautiful on ice remains. So that for me is a avenue into a U.S. market for Toller. He's not as well known in the States. He is in skating communities, of course, but not with his new 2 generations, maybe since his peak. And I'm looking forward to working with the people in Lake Placid to bring Toller to the forefront.
If people that are watching the video are interested in buying, purchasing a Toller Cranston, what do they need to do?
They need to go online to artevolution.com. Christopher Talbot has the authority to manage the estate paintings. There's a gallery, Donna Child Fine Art Gallery in Toronto, that also has a wonderful selection. But the first stop would be, just Google Toller Cranston Artworks and it will bring you to Art Evolution or to Donna Child, or go to my website, phillippabaran.com, and you'll find links to these galleries that have his work.
Any questions? ¿Preguntas? ¿Quiere preguntar algo, Manu?
Entonces, que si la labor de ella a través del libro es con el fin de seguir promocionando el deporte o el arte o ambas cosas.
Los dos, ¿no? Él fue una persona que revolucionó y cambió el mundo del arte en la parte del deporte, pero también se convirtió en una figura increíble en la parte artística, en las dos.
So how old was he when he died?
65.
65?
But he was able to achieve so much.
So much. It's
Yeah.
astounding what he did
Yeah.
in 65 years.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
I talked to Anita, remember, I can't remember her last name, I think her name was Anita. She spent a week with him.
Right.
And she said he had a table about 40 feet long and he had all the paints on it.
Well, it wasn't 40 feet long, but it was a
It
long
was a
table.
long table.
Yes.
And he had one of those office wheelchairs, and he would go over there and dab the brush. And she said he was working on like 5 or 6 paintings
Yes, he often would.
at a time.
That's
And
true.
she was just like spellbound. She couldn't believe how he was coming up with the images and then going over here and doing something entirely different that fit, of course, fitted. It was all amazing. She to this day, she's retiring this year and she's devoting herself to full-time painting, but she has just, her career as an artist has just blossomed because of her, weak mentorship with
Yes.
Toller, inspiration.
I
The
think something that we
inspiration.
need to admire
Eh?
from Toller Cranston is that
Eh?
he was his own artist. He
Yeah.
was not listening or paying attention to anything else that
Yeah.
was going on in the world about
Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
Of course, he knew about art,
Yeah.
but he was Toller Cranston.
That's
He
right.
making
Yeah.
the paintings that Toller
Yeah.
Cranston did.
That's right.
They don't look like anything
No,
else.
no.
They don't.
There's
they
a
are
fresh originality in each one of them, because he was coming from that place of originality, so deep place of originality that transcended all the popular stuff.
So we're going to conclude, but
Oh,
people, tomorrow we're going to be doing. We're going to read a poem, but tomorrow we're going to do a book launch at the Museum of Northern History, again at 4 p.m. So people that couldn't make it here to the Temiskaming Gallery, it looked like there was a tornado warning. Please come tomorrow to the Museum of Northern History in Kirkcaldy. It's only 1 hour. And hopefully we'll see you there. We're going to read now a poem.
And I'll tell you a little background of this. It happened when the Toller exhibition was here, and I noticed there were strawberries, throughout some of his paintings. And as a poet, I'm very inspired by visual prompts. It's very, very important part of my imagery is really an important part of my poetry. So I did a little Google research, and I found out a little more of the background of that, and inspired me to write this poem. Strawberry Journey Forever, to Toller Cranston, figure skater artist. Doubtless God could have made a better berry, but doubtless God never did. Dr. William Butler, 17th century English writer. Strawberry fields grew forever in your obsessed imagination in the 1970s. became your signature symbol, appearing in multiple paintings as a heart-shaped berry, giving Venus, goddess of love, a red living room in your creation-crazed art garden. The strawberry, associated with the rose family, only fruit having seeds on the outside. Your autobiography was titled, "When Hell Freezes Over, Shall I Bring My Skates?" Maybe paintbrushes and a bag of strawberries too. Always a dancer, testing the waters of being totally taller, a legend rising to new heights. Fearlessly expressive, his flamboyance on and off the ice earned accolades from around the world.